Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's 1 p.m., so we are going to call today's meeting of the Planning Advisory Committee to order. If I could have a motion to adopt today's agenda. Member Willick, seconded by Mayor Elmsley. All in favor? That carries. Thank you. Is there any declarations of pecuniary interest with this afternoon's meeting? Member Barkwell?
On 3.2, I have had other dealings with the applicant, and although it's a distant, I have nothing to do with this one, but just I have had other financial dealings.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other declarations of pecuniary interest before we move on? Okay, seeing none, we will move into item 3, public meeting reports. As required under the Planning Act, a public meeting is being held prior to the committee making any recommendations on these applications. The purpose of this public hearing is to allow the committee to gather information on the applications before us, to hear those wishing to make oral submissions on applications, and to allow the committee to ask questions of the applicants, interested parties, and staff. Everyone who makes a presentation at this meeting is requested to state their name for the public record. In the interest of time, the committee respectfully asks that you keep your presentation to no more than 5 minutes. When called, please either unmute yourself and turn on your video or come to the podium and press the speak button to activate the microphone. All recommendations from today's meeting will be forwarded to the regular council meeting of July 23rd, 2024. So we will begin with item 3.1, Plan 2024-045, an application to amend the Township of Emily zoning bylaw 1996-30 at 58 Shoreview Road and 55 Purdue Road, Lindsay. Go ahead.
Hello, Chair, Committee, City staff, and members of the public. I'm Michael Hanifi of Dillon Consulting. I'm acting as planning staff on behalf of the City of Kawartha Lakes. Planning staff have received a zoning bylaw amendment application as a condition of consent approval for a lot line adjustment to rezone a portion of the subject lands containing an existing residential dwelling from agricultural to rural residential type 1 zoning in the Township of Emily zoning bylaw. This is to restrict agricultural uses on the site and protect identified wetlands. The subject lands are located at 58 Shoreview and 55 Purdue Road. They are part of Lot 20, Concession 12 in the Township of Emily in the City of Kawartha Lakes. 58 Shoreview is the smaller parcel you see on your screen, and 55 Purdue Road is the larger parcel. The image you see is pre-lot line adjustment, and the subject lands in total are approximately 41.92 hectares. In terms of the surrounding uses, to the north of the subject lands are farmland and a garden center, and then to the east, the west, and the south are agricultural related uses designated rural in the official plan, and to the west there are some low-rise residential dwellings. In terms of the application context, through the consent application for lot line adjustment, which has been granted with condition for this rezoning application, the benefiting lands to be rezoned, and as shown as property A in the map on the screen, would be approximately 3.05 hectares, and the retained, as shown as property B on the screen, would be approximately 38.87 hectares. However, provisions in the zoning bylaw would enable agricultural uses on property A in the absence of a rezoning to restrict these uses. The size of the lot would not support nor be appropriate for agricultural uses, so to fulfill a condition of consent for the lot line adjustment, the applicant is proposing to amend the Township of Emily zoning bylaw to rezone that portion from agricultural A1 zone to rural residential type 1 zone for the existing residential lot, and to restrict agricultural uses while retaining that existing residential use on the property. New lot creation is not contemplated as part of the consent application, and no new structures are proposed as part of this application. And as noted, the retained portion, noted as property B, would be approximately 38.87 hectares post lot line adjustment, and it will remain agricultural A1 zone for agricultural uses, which are in compliance and conformity with the existing planning framework. Furthermore, through the consent process, existing wetland features were identified by Kawartha Conservation on a portion of the subject lands. In order for Kawartha Conservation to approve the lot line adjustment through the wetland, they required the applicant to protect the portion of the lands within the wetland features on property A, including a 30-meter buffer as shown on the map you see before you, to be rezoned to essentially delineate those lands in accordance with the wetland mapping provided by the Conservation Authority, and include a protection of those lands from future development. As per the schedule in Appendix D of the Planning Advisory Committee report, the proposed zoning bylaw amendment would amend Schedule A of the Township of Emily Zoning Bylaw 1996-30 from the agricultural A1 zone to the rural residential type 1 zone and the environmental protection zones as shown. In terms of policy conformity, the zoning bylaw amendment can be supported in the provincial policy statement, growth plan, and official plan. And as part of the review, relevant departments and agencies were circulated on the application. And as noted in the report, any comments received have been addressed. Planning staff are therefore of the opinion that the zoning bylaw amendment is appropriate as it restricts the uses on the residential lot to those permitted in the rural residential type 1 zone, thus facilitating the lot line adjustment, and it protects the wetland features through an environmental protection zone. Accordingly, staff respectfully recommend that the zoning bylaw amendment respecting application D06-2024-010 in the form attached in Appendix D to report Plan 2024-045 be approved.
Thank you. Committee, any questions of Michael at this time? Councillor Warren.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to staff. So I was just wondering whether an environmental impact study was done for natural heritage. I know the Conservation Authority deals with hazard lands, but I was just wondering if that was done.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the lot line adjustment has already been granted through the consent process, and this exercise is for protecting the wetlands and making sure that the benefiting lands where the dwelling unit is zoned appropriately to fit the existing use. And further to that, there hasn't been an EIS conducted as part of this approval. Should there be a future severance or a new building lot created in the future, they would be subject to the rural policies and the official plan, which would require at the time to complete further studies to protect any additional lands identified for natural heritage.
Through you, so that's a fairly big severance that so EIS was done initially through staff? I guess they didn't do that, no. Okay, thank you.
Any further questions of this at this time? Okay, seeing none. Does the applicant, owner, or their agent wish to speak to the application? Okay, it's not looking that way. Does the committee, well, there's nobody ask any questions of, I guess, committee, there's a recommendation before you. What are your wishes? Member O'Reilly?
Mr. Chair, the recommendation to amend the Township of Emily zoning bylaw at 58 Shoreview and 55 Purdue Road be received for information as zoning bylaw amendment respecting application D06-2024-010 substantially in the form attached as Appendix D to report Plan 2024-045. Amend the Township of Emily zoning bylaw at 58 Shoreview and 55 Purdue Road be approved and adopted by council, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute the documents required by the approval of this application.
Seconder for the motion, Councillor Richardson. Any discussion? Calling the question, all in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Thank you. That brings us to item 3.2, Plan 2024-046. And you'll just note that Member Barkwell's leaving the chamber. An application to amend the Township of Verulam zoning bylaw 6-87 at 75 St. Albans Road. Bob Cajun. Go ahead.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lindsay Noren, and I'm an urban planner from Dilling Consulting Limited. Thank you to the applicant for being here today, and staff and the Planning Advisory Committee for considering this application. I would like to note that notice for this application was originally given to each landowner, agencies, and departments in accordance with matters of the Planning Act, and this is the first circulation and appearance at PAC for this application. The subject property is located at 75 St. Albans Road and can legally be described as Concession 7 East Part Lot 18 in the Township of Verulam in the City of Kawartha Lakes. Staff received this application for a zoning bylaw amendment as a condition of consent approval. Through the recent consent application, approximately 1 hectare will be severed from the farm parcel at 75 St. Albans Road to contain the existing dwelling, swimming pool, shed, and septic system with about 135 meters of frontage on St. Albans Road and a depth of about 75 meters. The retained parcel would consist of 40 hectares of farmland that would be rezoned from General Rule A1 to General Rule Exception 15 as part of this application to prohibit future residential dwellings on the retained lands. The subject lands containing the existing residential dwelling comply with all provisions of the A1 zone, and the amendment applies to the agricultural lot only. The existing M2 on the southern boundary of the site would also remain unchanged. There is no built form changes or development proposed with this application. As of right, the site is currently serviced by a private well and septic system. Adjacent uses are agricultural to the north, the east, the south, and the west. The property does front on St. Albans Road, and the proposed retained lot, as I mentioned, is approximately 40 hectares in size, complies with the applicable zoning provisions, and the retained lot would be rezoned through this zoning bylaw amendment to prohibit future residential dwellings. Planning staff are of the opinion that this is appropriate. As mentioned, this application for a zoning bylaw amendment is a condition of consent. The retained parcel of 40 hectares of farmland, including the small portion of M2 to the south of the subject lands, is illustrated on the revised Schedule A shown here. This schedule was not included in the appendix of the staff report in error, but will accompany the application moving forward. To reiterate, the application only concerns the agricultural portion that is being rezoned right here on the screen to prohibit future residential dwellings on those lands. The subject lands containing the existing dwelling comply to all provisions, and the amendment applies to that larger portion only. The M2 zone, as indicated right here, is to remain, and no built form changes are proposed. During the circulation period, no concerns or objections were noted by any agency or public member during the period of circulation. It is our opinion that the proposal represents good land use planning by protecting farmland and prohibiting future residential dwellings on those retained lands. So in accordance with the policies of the PPS, the growth plan, Kawartha Lakes official plan, and the Township of Verulam zoning bylaw, staff respectfully recommend that the zoning bylaw amendment be approved and moved forward to council. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Ms. Noren. Committee, any questions? All right, seeing none. Does the applicant, owner, or their agent wish to speak to the application? No one? All right. Committee? Councillor Warren?
Through you, I'll move the recommendation. Okay, I'll read it. Okay, I must. All right. Here. I've got it here. 3.2. Okay. That report plan 2024-05 application, oh, wrong one, sorry, application to amend the Township of Verulam's zoning bylaw 6-87 at 75 St. Albans Road, Bob Cajun, Saya Greens, Thumb, Inc., care of Patel, Lindsay Nurim, RPP, MCIP, and Michael Hanafi, RPP, MCIP, Dillon Consulting Limited, on behalf of the City of Kawartha Lakes, be approved.
Seconder for the motion, Member Willick. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Thank you.
Mayor and clerk be authorized.
Would somebody
Thank
like...
you.
Thanks, Ms. Noren.
Should I have actually, that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute the documents required by the approval of this application?
We'll let you off with it this once.
Okay.
All right, this public meeting held under the Planning Act is now adjourned. We will move into item 4, deputations, which we have none. Correspondence, I believe we have none. Takes us to item 6, regular and returned reports. 6.1 is Plan 2024-044, an application to amend the Township of Somerville zoning bylaw 78-45 at 1101 Kawartha Lakes Road 49, Bob Cajun.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good afternoon, members of committee. We're here to discuss this application located at 1101 County Road 49. This is a returning item to rezone the property to facilitate the severance of vacant rural land from the retained rural property. I'm going to show the aerial view, and actually let me just go to full screen here. So you can see that the property is largely undeveloped with some natural features located on the property. And this is the proposed rezoning. The subject lands are designated as rural and environmental protection in the City of Kawartha Lakes official plan. There are a number of natural heritage features on the subject site. There's also an aggregate operation located directly east of the subject site across the road from County Road 49. The Director of Development Services, as delegated by Council, granted provisional consent to application D03-2017-026 on September 21st, 2022, to allow the severance of approximately 40 hectares of vacant rural land from 40 hectares of retained rural land. The conditions of provisional consent included that the proponent apply for a rezoning to address the applicable provincially significant natural heritage and natural hazard features located on the site, and to implement the appropriate setbacks from the neighboring aggregate operation. And so that's what this application seeks to do. The application was deemed complete on March 1st, 2024, and was circulated to internal city departments and external agencies for comment on March 18th, 2024. The statutory public meeting was held on April 10th, 2024. Planning Committee referred the item back to staff pending further technical review. These were related to the land use compatibility study related to the neighboring aggregate operation and a noise study, as well as environmental impact study triggered by the presence of the on-site natural heritage features. These technical reviews have since been completed, and the outstanding issues that had not been addressed or resolved at the time of the public meeting have been addressed to satisfaction of staff, and so we are recommending that the zoning bylaw amendment be approved. And we'll get into a little bit more detail on that. So I'm trying to avoid any further background here on the report. The existing aggregate operation that's located east of the subject site has potential to have negative impacts. The purpose of the severance of the property, the south side of the property, is to facilitate a dwelling at some point. And so it's necessary to determine what the potential impacts of that aggregate operation would be. The recommendations of the land use compatibility and noise study were to implement a 300-meter buffer from the neighboring aggregate operation so that any future development would be outside of that buffer area. The existing single detached dwelling and shed, which are on the retained portion of the property on the north end, are within that 300-meter buffer, but because it's an existing condition, it doesn't block this rezoning or cause any issues from a policy standpoint. A technical review of the land use compatibility and noise study were completed, confirming that it was all done properly and that it meets the conditions of the consent application. In addition, the environmental impact study was submitted to respond to comments provided by Kawartha Conservation during the previously completed consent application. Following a review of the EIS, the Conservation Authority has expressed no concerns with the zoning bylaw amendment, and therefore the proposed rezoning is considered appropriate. Through our review of the planning policies for the growth plan, the provincial policy statement, and the official plan, we've found that it conforms with the growth plan, it's consistent with the PPS, and it conforms with the policies of the Kawartha Lakes official plan. The Township of Somerville zoning bylaw 78-45 zones the entire subject property as rural general, and the condition for the consent required that they rezoned the property from rural general to rural general exception 9 and from rural general to the environmental protection zone. And so that's the changes that you're seeing on this map. The light gray area is the retained portion of the property, which will remain in the rural general zone. The dotted pattern represents the environmental protection zone, which will be added, and the striped hatched portion is to be rezoned to rural general exception 9. After reviewing the technical reviews, we found that the mapping and the area to be rezoned as environmental protection is appropriate, and the proposed zoning, the site-specific zone implementing the 300-meter setback from the aggregate operation is also appropriate. The reason that the decision on this was referred, or reason that the application was referred back to staff, was that we were still waiting on comments from Kawartha Conservation and a peer review on the noise study and land use compatibility study. We did since receive comments in response to that with no concerns, and confirmation that the setback and the provisions in the proposed zoning bylaw amendment are appropriate. And so for that reason, we recommend that the zoning bylaw amendment respecting application D06-2024-008 in the form of the attached zoning bylaw amendment attached to report plan 2024-44 be approved and adopted by council. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Mr. Alexander. Committee, any questions? Councillor Warren.
Through you, Mr. Chair, thank you for the report. You said that it went to Kawartha Conservation. The EIS went to Kawartha Conservation and they had no trouble with anything. But they can't speak to natural heritage. So was any natural heritage study done?
Through you, Chair, the environmental impact study was completed by the applicant. It was reviewed by my staff for planning compliance, so conformity with the policies, and it was circulated to Kawartha Conservation as a courtesy. There are hazard lands on the property as well, and they identified no issues with any of those issues,
Okay,
any
thank
of those matters.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Mayor Elmsley?
No, I was going to give you a motion. That the recommendation, the report plan 2024-044, amendment to the Township of Somerville zoning bylaws 78-45, 1101 County Road 49, be received for information, and that a zoning bylaw amendment respecting application D06-2024-008, substantially in the form attached as Appendix D to Report Plan 2024-044, be approved and adopted by council, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute the documents required by the approval of this application.
Seconder, Councillor Warren. Any discussion? Calling the question. All in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Thank you. That brings us to 6.2, Plan 2024-047, an application to amend the Township of Somerville zoning bylaw 78-45 at 5 Craigo Street, Kinmount.
I will stop sharing and allow somebody else to speak.
Go ahead,
Thanks,
Ms.
Matt.
Noren.
Okay. Hi again, everybody. So fun I decided to do it twice today. This is the second appearance at PAC for this application. So quick refresher, the subject property is located at 5 Craigo Street with the correct legal address being 5 Craigo Street, Plan 105, part of Lot 1, west of Monk Road, south of Craigo Street, in the geographic township of Somerville, now in the city of Kawartha Lakes. So as brought forth at the June PAC, the site comprises about 742 square meters and is serviced by municipal storm water, sewers, and a private waste disposal system. The property is currently developed with a former church and Masonic lodge with a ground floor area of approximately 143 square meters. The surrounding uses include residential, commercial, and community facility uses. The owner has applied to facilitate the conversion of the existing building to a residential dwelling unit. So the proposal will change the zoning from community facility to rural residential type 2 exception to permit the conversion and recognize the existing lot deficiencies in the zoning bylaw, including minimum lot area, frontage, front yard, and flankage yard. No built form changes are proposed with this application. The application originally came to the June 5th PAC with the recommendation for referral back to agencies due to some questions raised by Public Works and Engineering regarding the possibility of municipal infrastructure running parallel to the driveway at the south component of the property along here. Further review and discussion through the planning and legal processes were required regarding the financial and legal responsibilities of who should initiate, lead, and finance the need for those easements for the existing water service to adjacent properties along Craigo. Since our recent appearance at PAC, the applicant has applied for a safe entrance permit and legal has been engaged in the process of facilitating an easement for the Craigo Street owners impacted by this infrastructure. As the current driveway conforms to the bylaw, however, the safe entrance permit has not yet been approved by Public Works. It is our professional opinion that this should not impact a zoning approval, and because of this, we have added to our zoning bylaw that prior to the issuance of a building permit, an entrance shall be provided by the property owner to the satisfaction of the City of Kawartha Lakes in accordance with bylaw 2017-151, the bylaw to regulate access to municipal right-of-ways in the City of Kawartha Lakes, as this still holds the applicant to meeting those regulations within that bylaw. These discussions have been extensive with the applicant, owner, senior planning staff, and Public Works, and everyone concurs with this provision in the zoning bylaw. With this in mind, staff respectfully recommend that the application be carried to council for approval. The owners and the applicant are here to address any questions you may have. But yes, thank you.
Thanks for that, Ms. Noren. Committee, any questions? Councillor Warren?
Just make the recommendation.
All right. So you're making the motion that report plan 2024-047, an application to amend the Township of Somerville zoning bylaw 78-45 at 5 Crego Street, Kinmount, LeBlanc, and Brickman be received for information that a zoning bylaw amendment respecting application D06-2024-009, substantially in the form attached as Appendix D to report plan 2024-047, application to amend the Township of Somerville zoning bylaw 78-45 at 5 Crego Street, Kinmount, LeBlanc, and Brickman be approved and adopted by council, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute the documents required by the approval of this application. Seconder for the motion, Councillor Richardson. Any discussion? Councillor Warren?
Appropriate to, at this point, speak to the, or have in the recommendation the entrance permit, or can that wait to maybe council?
I think that they've already addressed that
Yeah.
through these changes. It has
Got
nothing.
a question.
It has nothing to do with zoning, and the necessary requirements for the permits are already in there. So I think we're good.
Okay, just one of the council or members asked.
Yep.
Thanks.
Any other discussion? Calling the question. All in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Noren.
Thank you.
That brings us to item 6.3, Plan 2024-048, an application to amend the Kawartha Lakes official plan at 9 Farmingdale Road, Kirkfield, Bexley. Mr. Alexander?
Good afternoon again. This again is a returning application. This is an application to amend the City of Kawartha Lakes official plan to facilitate the future creation of 3 new residential lots on the subject lands. Here's the aerial view. The site is currently designated rural, with only a small portion that is designated environmental protection under the official plan. It includes locally significant wetlands and unevaluated wetlands, as well as significant woodlands and significant wildlife habitat on the western portion of the property. Another small area of significant woodland is located on the eastern portion of property. However, these are all located outside of the area that is proposed to be severed at a later date. The site is zoned rural general under the Township of Bexley zoning bylaw 93-09. Here is the survey and sketch for the property, which shows some of the important elements that I'll be speaking to. The applicant proposes to amend the official plan to implement a special rural designation policy provision that would support the creation of 3 new lots on the property through a future consent application. The total area that would be subject to this is 5.5 hectares in total. The 3 new lots would be accessed from Homewood Park Road, while the existing single detached dwelling and barn would continue to occupy the retained land and be accessed from Farmingdale Lane. Currently, the rural designation only permits new lot creation when a residence has become surplus to a farming operation or to accommodate a retiring farmer. From what you can see from the aerial view, this is not substantially farmed property, and it is not designated agriculture or considered a prime agricultural property. And due to this sort of oversight in the official plan, a site-specific policy amendment is required to permit the creation of the 3 new lots on the subject land. The application was deemed complete on January 26, 2024, and was circulated to internal city departments and external agencies for comment. A statutory public meeting was held on March 6, 2024. Planning Advisory Committee referred the application back to staff due to outstanding technical reviews from commenting agencies and ongoing consultation with Alderville First Nation. A second submission was circulated to city departments and external agencies on May 3rd, 2024. The applicant has addressed all required comments, and in my opinion, it's appropriate to recommend approval of the official plan amendment application at this time. Following the public meeting, or prior to the public meeting and up till now, we had received a number of public comments from residents in the area. None of them expressed objection to the application per se, but they did have a number of questions related to requesting additional information. So one comment requested clarification on the location of the site and whether it had frontage on the lake. It does not have frontage on the lake. Another commenter asked for copies of the application materials, which were provided, and they wanted to know how the proposed new lots would be accessed, where their access would come from, which, as addressed, is Homewood Park Road. They also asked for conceptual lot layout and details on the official plan and zoning permissions, and so we provided that information as well. And because there is no consent application or development proposed at this time, there is no site-specific development concept for the property, no locations for dwellings or driveways or anything like that yet. We also, just checking, we also received a question about timing, about the public meeting, and other requests for more information. And so we were able to follow up with them and provide the information that they were seeking. Our review of the growth plan, the provincial policy statement, and the official plan found that the proposal does meet all applicable policies related to natural heritage features as well as rural development. Under the Kawartha Lakes official plan in particular, section 17.3.2 prohibits the creation of lots for the purpose of development within the environmental protection designation. These proposed lots are located outside of the portion of the property that's subject to environmental protection designations, and there is no proposed change in land use anywhere else on the property. And so we were satisfied that that was not a concern. Kawartha Conservation noted that the site is within 120 meters of an unevaluated wetland and a provincially significant wetland. The site is also within a known karst area. Kawartha Conservation's review indicated no issues with the environmental impact study that was submitted. We also reviewed the environmental impact study to ensure that it was meeting all of the policy requirements. And as such, we feel that the environmental issues have all been addressed. Notes. With regards to the Township of Bexley zoning bylaw, the 3 new residential lots will be subject to the rural residential 1 zone provisions. The 3 new lots proposed by the applicant meet the minimum lot size requirements. A zoning bylaw amendment should not be required to create the new lots. They appear to have been sketched or planned in order to meet the standard zoning bylaw requirements. However, once they make an application for consent, that review will be done and confirmed. A comprehensive development site plan concept, as I mentioned, has not been provided, but that will be subject to future applications. So at the time of the public meeting, the comments that we were still awaiting were related to natural heritage and also Indigenous consultation. Alderville First Nation had commented originally stating that they wanted to review the archaeological assessment. Heritage Planning also wanted to review the archaeological assessment and ultimately determined that there was no additional assessment required and that there are no objections or concerns with the application. Alderville First Nation also reviewed the second circulation of the application and confirmed that they have no further comments. Kawartha Conservation indicated that a permit pursuant to Ontario Regulation 182/06 may be required prior to any future development on the property, along with an erosion and sediment control plan because of their proximity to Kawartha regulated area. Kawartha Conservation will support the approval of the official plan amendment with acknowledgement that a condition for a karst assessment be completed at the time of the consent application. And this is to assess the prevalence or the presence of karst topography on the landscape. This has been acknowledged by the applicant, and the official plan amendment has been revised to address this future requirement. Based on the technical review as well as our planning review of the application, we recommend that the official plan amendment respecting application D01 2024-002 be referred to council for approval substantially in the form as provided in Appendix D attached to the report. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Mr. Alexander. Committee, any questions? Member Barkwell?
Thank you very much, Matt. Just to clarify, so the zoning will be changed and 3 new lots will be created through this application?
Through you, Chair. The lots will not be created through this approval. So the official plan amendment adds policy that would allow for a consent application to be submitted on the subject property to create up to 3 lots. And so that's just a policy change. The zoning bylaw is not proposed to be changed at this time, and the sketch that the applicant has provided as part of their proposal appears to comply with the zoning requirements that will apply when they make their consent application. So if approved, the applicant will still need to submit a consent application at a later time. That will be reviewed for compliance with the zoning bylaw, and through the text of the official plan amendment that we've recommended here, they will also be required to undertake a karst assessment in order to demonstrate that the landscape is appropriate for residential development.
Thank you. I thought that's what you said, but it took, it's a lot of detail. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Any further questions?
I'll move that the official plan amendments respecting application to D01-2024-002 substantially in the form of the attached as Appendix D to report plan 2024-048 be approved for adoption by council, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute the documents required by the approval of this application. Yeah, the report be received, and that, yeah, thank you.
Seconder for the motion, Mayor Elmsley. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? That carries. All right, that brings us down to item number 7, motion for adjournment. Member O'Reilly?
Just a quick comment. I'd like to thank Leah and your staff for getting the reports back in such a timely fashion. That's great. Whatever, I know you've got a lot on your plate, and I think we let Sarah and Kirk off pretty lightly today. I think, we should at least have a couple questions for them, but anyways, thanks for coming.
Seconder, Councillor Richardson, all in favor? Thank you. Meeting adjourned.